I should have known something was wrong when I saw Mark's expression during the wedding toast. My brother had that same look he wore in high school before pulling one of his infamous pranks. A mix of mischief and barely contained satisfaction. And now, he announced, tapping his champagne glass, a special presentation for my dear sister Emma and her new husband. The crowd of 200 guests turned their attention to the large screen we'd set up for wedding photos. My name is Emma Chen, and at 29, I was celebrating what should have been the happiest day of my life. Instead, it became the day my family's darkest secret came crashing down around us. Mark clicked his remote, and grainy footage filled the screen. I found this while cleaning out Dad's old storage unit, he said, his voice carrying an edge I'd never heard before. Thought everyone should see it. The timestamp read June 15, 1993, 3 months before my birth. The video showed our parents' old living room, where my mother sat crying while my father paced back and forth. "Turn it off," my mother suddenly commanded, her voice sharp with panic. But Mark ignored her. "You can't keep this from him forever, Margaret," my father's voice crackled through the speakers. "He has a right to know about his daughter." The room fell silent. My husband James grabbed my hand as we watched my mother shake her head frantically on screen. "No one can ever know, Richard," we agreed. "Emma is ours. That's all that matters." The champagne glass slipped from my father's trembling fingers, shattering on the floor. Next to me, my mother's face had drained of all color. I felt the world spinning. "Emma is ours." What did that mean? My mother had always told me I was born in Seattle General Hospital. She had my birth certificate, photos of her pregnancy. The video continued mercilessly. "What about Thomas?" my father demanded. "He's her father. He deserves." Enough. My mother's scream cut through the reception hall. She lunged for the control panel, but Mark blocked her path. "Why?" he asked, his voice cold. "Afraid everyone will learn how you stole Emma from her real father." The words hit me like physical blows. Stolen. Real father. The room started to blur as guests began whispering, phones recording every moment of my family's implosion. "I did what I had to do," my mother whispered, but in the silent hall, everyone heard her. Thomas was going to take her away. I couldn't let that happen. My father stood up, his face ashen. "Margaret, what did you do?" She turned to him pleading. "I told you she was ours. You promised never to question it." "Because you told me her mother died in childbirth," he shouted. "You said Thomas gave her up willingly." The truth crashed over me in waves. Not only was I not their biological daughter, my mother had actively taken me from my real father, a man named Thomas who had wanted me, who had been denied the chance to raise his own child. "Get out," I said, my voice shaking. "All of you, get out." James stood up, trying to take control of the situation. "Everyone, please, let's give the family some privacy." "Privacy?" Mark laughed bitterly. "That's rich. Mom's been keeping secrets for 30 years. I think we're past privacy." Security began ushering guests toward the exits, many still filming on their phones. My perfect wedding had transformed into a viral scandal in minutes. "Emma, sweetheart." My mother reached for me, but I jerked away. "Don't touch me," I hissed. "Don't you dare touch me." My father hadn't moved, still staring at my mother like he was seeing a stranger. "All these years," he whispered. "Every time I asked about her birth mother, about Thomas, you lied to my face." "I did it for us," she insisted. "For our family." "What family?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Everything I thought I knew about myself is a lie. Who am I, really? Who is Thomas? What happened to my birth mother?" Mark stepped forward, holding up a manila envelope. "I found more than just the video, Emma. There are letters, documents. Thomas McCarthy is your biological father. He's been looking for you for 30 years. The name hit me like a physical blow. Thomas McCarthy. Somewhere out there, I had a father who had never stopped searching for me. He's alive? My mother's voice was barely a whisper. But how? The restraining order. Expired 15 years ago, Mark finished. He's been trying to contact Emma ever since. All those letters you intercepted, the calls you blocked. Did you really think you could hide this forever?" I looked at my brother, understanding dawning. "You've known. How long have you known?" 6 months, he admitted. "Since I found the storage unit. I wanted to tell you right away, but I knew Mom would try to spin it, make excuses. I needed everyone to see the truth." "By ruining my wedding?" I asked, tears streaming down my face. "By setting you free," he corrected. Thomas deserves to know his daughter, and you deserve to know your real father. The days following my wedding were a blur of canceled honeymoon plans, unanswered calls from well-wishers, and the constant ping of social media notifications as clips of Mark's revelation went viral. James suggested we get away for a while, but I couldn't leave. Not until I had answers. Mark brought over the manila envelope he'd found in a storage unit. We spread its contents across my dining room table, yellowed letters, court documents, and photographs I'd never seen before. "This is him," Mark said softly, sliding a photo toward me. "Thomas McCarthy." I stared at the image, searching for pieces of myself in this stranger's face. He had my eyes, I realized with a start. The same unusual gray-green color that had always made me stand out in family photos. In the picture, he was holding a baby, me, and smiling like he held the whole world in his arms. "The letters start from 1993, Mark explained, handling the papers carefully. "He wrote to Mom every month for 5 years. Then the tone changes. He gets desperate, angry. That's when he tried to fight legally." I picked up one of the letters, dated December 1998. "Margaret, please, she's my daughter. I've respected your wishes, stayed away as you demanded, but she deserves to know the truth. Sarah would have wanted her to know." "Sarah," I whispered, "my birth mother." Mark nodded grimly. "Sarah Mitchell. She and Thomas weren't married, but they were engaged. According to these documents, she died shortly after giving birth to you, complications from preeclampsia. But how did Mom end up with me? If Thomas was there, if he wanted me." "That's where it gets complicated," Mark said, pulling out a stack of legal papers. "Mom was Sarah's nurse at the hospital. When Sarah died, Thomas was devastated. Mom offered to help with the baby, you, while he grieved. She used her position at the hospital to gain his trust." My hands shook as I read through the court transcripts. My mother, Margaret Wilson, RN, had been investigated for falsifying hospital records. She'd somehow managed to get my birth certificate issued with her name as the mother, using her connections in hospital administration. By the time Thomas realized what was happening, Mark continued, Mom and Dad had moved us to Seattle. She filed a restraining order against Thomas, claiming he was mentally unstable and threatening her family. The courts believed her. She was a respected nurse after all. "Dad really didn't know?" I asked, though I'd seen the truth in his face at the wedding. "Mom told him she'd adopted you legally, that Thomas had signed away his rights. Dad never saw these papers. She kept everything hidden, even from him." My phone buzzed, another call from my mother. I'd ignored dozens already, but this time I picked up. "Emma, please," she begged. "Let me explain." "Explain what?" I asked coldly. "How you stole me from my grieving father. How you lied to everyone for 30 years? "I loved you from the moment I saw you," she said, her voice breaking. "Thomas was a mess after Sarah died. He couldn't even look at you without breaking down. I knew I could give you a better life. That wasn't your decision to make. You don't understand. Sarah was my patient. I promised her I'd look after you if anything happened. Thomas, he wasn't fit to be a father then. So you decided to become my mother instead, to fake documents and lie to your own husband?" "I did it because I loved you," she insisted. "No," I said firmly. "You did it because you wanted a baby and didn't care who you hurt to get one. Does Thomas even know I'm alive? After all these years, does he think I'm dead too?" The silence on the other end was damning. "He's in Portland now," Mark said after I hung up. "I found him on LinkedIn. He's a high school English teacher. Portland, just 3 hours away. All this time, my real father had been so close." "There's something else," Mark added hesitantly. "He got married about 20 years ago. You have 2 half-siblings, a brother and a sister." I sat down hard, overwhelmed. Not only did I have a father, but siblings too, a whole other family I'd never known existed. "Why did you wait?" I finally asked Mark. "Why reveal everything at my wedding?" He was quiet for a moment. "I found the storage unit in January. At first, I was just going to tell you privately. But then I overheard Mom on the phone, talking about selling the unit and destroying everything inside. She knew I'd been there. She was going to erase it all, just like she'd erased Thomas from your life. I couldn't let that happen." "So you chose my wedding day?" "I chose the one day she couldn't stop me, couldn't spin the story her way. The one day everyone would have to face the truth." I looked down at the photo of Thomas again, at the love shining in his eyes as he held his baby daughter. My mother had stolen that love, that future, from both of us. I want to meet him, I said firmly. Mark nodded, pulling out his phone. I thought you might. I already found his email address. My hands trembled as I began to type. Dear Mr. McCarthy, my name is Emma Wilson, but I believe you knew me as Emma McCarthy. The coffee shop in Portland was quiet for a Sunday afternoon. I sat by the window, my heart pounding as I watched every person walk by. James squeezed my hand reassuringly, while Mark sat across from us, checking his phone. He's here, Mark said suddenly, looking toward the door. I turned and saw him, Thomas McCarthy, my biological father, standing in the doorway. He was older than in the photos, his hair now gray at the temples, but those eyes, my eyes, scanned the room until they found mine. For a moment, neither of us moved. 30 years of separation, of lies and loss, hung between us like a physical thing. Then he took a step forward and I found myself standing. Emma, he breathed, his voice breaking on my name. You look just like your mother. I hadn't expected those words to hit me so hard. All my life, people had said I didn't look like Margaret, and now I knew why. I looked like Sarah, the mother I'd never known. Would you like to sit? I managed to say, gesturing to our table. Thomas nodded, lowering himself into the chair. His hands shook slightly as he placed a worn leather briefcase on the table. I brought some things, he said, opening it. Photos of Sarah, of you as a baby, if you'd like to see them. Please, I whispered. He pulled out an album, and for the next hour, he shared pieces of my history I'd never known. Sarah had been an artist, he told me, showing me pictures of her paintings. That's where my creativity came from, not from Margaret's side of the family as I'd always believed. She was so excited about you, Thomas said, his voice thick with emotion. She painted your nursery herself, clouds and stars, because she said you'd be her little dreamer. What happened? I asked, though Mark had already told me. I needed to hear it from him. Thomas's face darkened. The pregnancy was difficult. Sarah developed preeclampsia in her 3rd trimester. The doctors tried everything, but he swallowed hard. She held you once, named you Emma after her grandmother, and then she was gone. And then Margaret took me. He nodded, anger flashing in his eyes. She seemed so kind at first, offering to help while I arranged the funeral. I was a mess, barely functioning. She said she'd handle the paperwork, make sure everything was properly registered. By the time I realized what she'd done, she disappeared with me. I searched everywhere, he said, pulling out newspaper clippings. Hired private investigators, filed police reports. But she planned it all so carefully. The false birth certificate, the restraining order. By the time I found you in Seattle, the courts believed I was just an obsessed stranger harassing an innocent family. I thought about my mother, Margaret, and all her careful preparations. The photo albums she'd crafted, showing her supposedly pregnant, the stories she told about my birth. How many people had helped her maintain this lie? I never stopped looking, Thomas continued. Even after the restraining order, I kept tabs on you from afar. I saw your graduation announcement in the Seattle Times, your engagement notice. I knew you were loved, successful, but it killed me not to be part of your life. Tell me about your family now, I said, needing to shift away from the pain of the past. His face brightened. Hannah is 22, studying medicine at UCLA. Michael's 19, just started at Oregon State. And Kate, my wife, she knows all about you. She's helped me keep searching all these years. Would they want to meet me? They're actually here in Portland, he admitted. At our house. They wanted to give us space for this first meeting, but they're hoping you might come for dinner. All of you, he added, looking at James and Mark. I glanced at James, who nodded encouragingly. I'd like that. As we stood to leave, Thomas hesitated. Emma, there's one more thing. He pulled out a small, paint-stained box. Sarah made this for you before you were born. I've kept it all these years, hoping. Inside was a delicate silver locket. When I opened it, I found a tiny painted portrait. A woman with my eyes and smile, her hand resting on her pregnant belly. She painted it as a gift for your first birthday, Thomas said softly. She wanted you to always know her face, her love for you. I clasped the locket around my neck, feeling the weight of it. The weight of truth, of real family history, settle against my heart. Later that evening, sitting around Thomas's dining table, surrounded by my newfound siblings, their laughter and questions and eager acceptance, I felt something shift inside me. Margaret had tried to give me a perfect life by stealing me from my real family. But perfection built on lies could never last. Here, with Thomas and his family, my family, I found something better: truth, acceptance, and the chance to finally know who I really was. The locket rested against my chest, Sarah's painted eyes watching over this reunion she'd never gotten to see. But somehow, I felt her presence, her love, finally where it was meant to be.